Right, hello there everyone, and welcome back for another Ninth Age Essence of War battle report. Once again, taking place on Tabletop Simulator. I've been ripping through the games, and as have been the players, and so let's get straight into this one. Right, so hopefully you can see all this okay. This game was played just yesterday, so I'm getting ahead of the game here. Well, not quite ahead, but you get my point. Keeping up with the game. And speaking of keeping up with the game, I was actually playing in this one. Yay, that's me. These guys didn't get to see my face during the live stream, though, which was on Vale of Gage's Twitch, of course, because I haven't got a good way to set up my desktop computer when I'm playing on keyboard and mouse and have a camera. So you're going to get to see me now, though, guys. Don't worry about it. And my opponent for the game was Chack, who jumped in at the last moment. This was a transcontinental match because I was obviously playing from the UK. Pateo is hosting from Germany, and Chack hails from Italy, if I'm not incorrect. So yeah, we were really cool actually to have a good chat with him before and after the game and during, of course, and meeting like ninth age players from all around the country, all around the country, all around the world. Well, I have met people from the UK as well, but all around the world as well. Really cool stuff, actually. One of the big benefits of playing online gaming, I guess. And especially because you do get, obviously, you can't really play this game and if you don't have voice chat with your opponent and things like that. But that really adds to the social aspect. So one of the things that's nice about tabletop miniatures gaming as opposed to other forms of gaming, normally you obviously you're sat around a room and playing with each other on the same table. Even if you can't do that in these socially distanced times, or if you're playing online digitally, you do get at least to have a good chat with your opponent, like as you're playing online as well. So that is really nice for that. So Chack is playing the Sylvan Elves. I am playing Empire of Sonnstahl. This is one of the last games actually with them. I think there's one more game to play on Sunday, so check it out on Vale of the Ages if you'd like to see these live. They're pretty fascinating actually. Or hang around, maybe I'll do another bat rep, but possibly not. I can't bat rep every single game they play, but I'll try and get some of the more interesting ones. In which case, this one might be actually. So yeah, Sylvan Elves, one of the already published factions. You can get in the alpha version of the rulebook already. So we've seen like the Warriors list. I haven't actually talked about them on my channel before though, so I'll go into a little bit of detail. They have, as per most lists, they do have a spellcaster. In this case, it's a druid who has a longbow as well. Not to be no, not to knock that because they're actually quite good at shooting as well. The two spells though aren't amazing, right? For the Sylvan Elves, not super powered magic because they only have a spell called Truth of Time, which is a speed buff that you can put on your own units. Which is okay. It can help really. It can actually help in certain circumstances if you're trying to make a charge. So it's good for. It allows you to roll extra dice when you're rolling your charge pursuit, but also when you're fleeing as well. So and overrunning. And so in some weird situations, it can actually be a detriment because it could cause your unit to run farther, which sometimes you want it to do, sometimes you don't want it to do. So be careful if you're playing Sylvan Elves when you cast Truth of Time and who you cast it on. The other one is Healing Waters, which gives a small buff to the unit that it's targeted on. They get what's called an Aegis save. Now, this is similar to the other armor saves, but you can't reduce it. So even if the opponent's got high armor penetration, your Aegis saves sort of stay the same no matter what. So they're on in addition to your normal armor saves, so you can get some pretty tough guys. But one of the disadvantages in the Sylvan Elf list is one of their best units is these combat dryads. There's only 8 of them, and they're not quite as powerful as the Warriors unit we've seen in the Warriors of the Dark Gods, but they're not that far off. But they've already got an Aegis save, right? So you can't double buff them. You can't get 2 Aegis saves, unfortunately. So one of the limitations is this Healing Water spell can only be cast on 2 of your 3 units, which is a real problem. Actually, it's something we're looking at with the balancing these lists and the how the magic works and all those kind of things. Maybe we might tinker with this one a little bit, but obviously this is why it's an alpha. This is why we're doing the play testing. But I mean, I think they've done pretty well in some of the battles, so let's not do them any injustice at this point. They have a group of Sylvan archers who are fairly standard, kind of. Zoom in a little bit. Fairly standard kind of archer guys, but they are elves, so they're pretty fast and they're pretty good discipline. They don't have any armor though, so they're definitely a good target for some of your buff spells. Reasonably good skills, very good agility, but the real thing they've got is this Sylvan longbow, which goes very long range and is pretty potent actually. Has armor penetration, and there's no to hit modifier for moving and shooting, so their range is actually a lot better than you would think because they've got 30-inch range on those bows, and they hit on a 3 plus, I believe. Yeah, so they hit well. They're very good shots. They got a long range, and they can move and shoot. Almost like really hard to avoid that. If you think about a unit that normally a shooting unit, you kind of can predict where it can get to and shoot, and well, normally they have modifiers. These guys can maneuver and still hit you very well. So very quite strong missile fire there actually. But not super powerful. Probably you'd say it's more reliable than some of the other shooting because of the fact that you can pretty guarantee you're going to get some hits, but it's not super strong. But it does stronger than some lists for sure. And then they've also got these wild huntsman unit. Now these are a really really crazy unit. They're like I guess I don't know, stag riding cavalry elves or something. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but they are incredibly powerful on the charge. They've got a massive movement, a potential like march of 18 or advance of 9 plus 2d6, so really long potential charge range. And if they do charge you, they're hitting, if they've not, and the full unit can get in, they're going to have 15 attacks, right? Because they get 2 attacks each plus an extra attack if they're charging. Um, 15 attacks, offensive skill 5, strength 5, and AP 3. So that is, and agility 6 as well, so they're almost certainly going to hit before anything else in the game. And that amount of attacks is really going to put a dent in anyone. So they're absolutely devastating on the charge, but they're a complete glass cannon unit because resistance 3, armor 3, and only 1 hit point each. So very vulnerable. They do have really high discipline though, discipline 9, so very hard to panic them off or anything like that. I will be playing as the Empire of Sonstal, who we've talked about a little bit in my other videos. I'll give you a quick rundown though if you've not watched them. Wizard, Spellcaster, as before. Corruption of 10 reduces the enemy armor. Not very useful against these Sylvan Elves because they don't have a lot of armor. Only useful against one of their units. And as I say, nothing that affects armor affects those Aegis saves. So Corruption of 10, no use against Aegis. Scorching Salvo, however, pretty good against those elves. They don't have a lot of armor. Okay, they've got the Aegis save, but it's not that great. So Scorching Salvo, a big threat. Corruption of 10, not so useful in this one. We talked about before the light infantry. You've got 10 of these guys. Handguns, so they're your handgunners. A dangerous threat at missile fire. They can do a bit of damage to any of those elf units. They've got to be pretty scared of those. So the missile firepower of this list, actually, between the Wizard's Scorching Salvo and the Light Infantry's handguns, is definitely a threat. Whereas because these Electoral Cavalry, there's 5 of them and 15 Imperial Guard, these guys have got armor 4 and there's 15 of them. These guys have got armor 5, even though there's only 5 of them. So when you and the resilience 3, but when you look at the shooting output of these Sylvan Archers, it'll probably pick off a 1 or 2 guys, maybe, but the only unit that's really scared of being shot is probably the light infantry themselves, funnily enough. So shooting the shooters is a potential thing. So we'll get into this one. I did win the role for choosing side and all of that and taking the first turn. And as we've talked about before, it's a bit of a mixed blessing. It can help you or it can hinder you. Didn't know. Okay, I had to think about this one. This is actually the same battle that I did a report on, and I just finished recording that when I went to play this. So this battlefield was very fresh in my mind. So that was kind of an advantage to me, actually, I think. And as I'd seen PTG Hyper G play Empire Sunstar on this side, I thought I'd put my money where my mouth is. I would play on this side, but I'd set up in the way I thought maybe he could have set up. The reason I chose this side, we talked about actually in my last bat rep, this battlefield is almost symmetrical, but the slight differences I thought that made it better for me to be here, right? Because again, if you are setting up first, you know you've got the first turn, right? So I thought Chack might go for his, as we talked about, his Sylvan longbows could be a big threat to my handgunners, even though my handgunners are a big threat to all of his units as well. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure I could keep them in some cover, so that if these 2 units ended up shooting at each other, which was quite a possibility, I thought, I'd have the benefit of cover, right? Whereas if I set up on this side, they'd have to be quite a long way back from the main battlefield, and their shorter range handguns wouldn't be as advantageous. And there's not really great shooting arcs from this wood. Whereas this wood, if I set up right behind it, move forward on the first turn to get within range of something, hopefully, right? They can really do some firepower damage there, right? So yeah, I really like the idea of going on this side because of that advantageous wood to me, basically, for my shooting unit to go in specifically. Um, as we talked about, I wanted my knights out on the flank up here to be able to swing around, hopefully get into some cover behind this building so they don't get charged in the side themselves, but then threaten to use their big speed and potential long charges into the main center of the board. And even if they're not doing anything, they're going to be a useful threat there to try and prevent units just walking straight into that objective, right? Um, and then again, the reason I chose this side, right, I was planning to run forward with my Imperial Guard and my Wizard behind this hill. Because this hill's really nice for the wizard, because he can dance around it potentially and get into some really nice spots where he's not as easily spotted by the opponent to get charged or shot at. Um, but he can get some really nice, that massive range on that Scorching Salvo. I can hopefully hit like all of the Alpha units in one go if I can get into the center of the board. So, and the best way to do that um, was I thought because the hill's slightly further to that side, I wanted to be able to move up farther and threaten farther like into the map. Whereas in this side again, I'd be quite stuck near my own deployment zone to try and stay behind the hill. And also I measured it out, so I was like, if the Imperial Guard go forward to here, and say he decides to move his Wild Huntsman up, as we talked about, they're very devastating if they charge, but they're not so good at receiving a charge. So I wanted to see if I moved the Imperial Guard forward as far as I could on the first turn, how would they seriously threaten a charge at anything that went onto the hill? And the answer is yes, they could, even from this side of the board. Definitely they could from if I deployed over here. So yeah, going into depth in the deployment actually today on this one, because as you'll see, it was very important to this battle. And if you follow some of the Ninth Age strategy tips and things like that, there's a guy called Furion who's quite well known, I think, in the Ninth Age community. You can find him on YouTube. I think it's at Follow Furion. Definitely worth a watch for some of his stuff. Some really long videos, those you got to be willing to have a lot of time. Um, but yeah, he often says, I think he says that like 80% of the game is done in the deployment and first turn. So it's definitely something you should always think a lot about. I'd say probably less so in Essence of War, because the balance, the armies are so kind of closely balanced when you're playing patrol versus patrol at least. You can't get like a huge advantage by having just like the right units to fight your opponent. Like it's always kind of fairly balanced, and often it can come down to a few key positional moments, maybe a few key dice rolls as well in Essence of War, and it's designed to to be kind of nice for new players in that way as well, or experienced players who just want to play a quick game, which is the whole point of this, right? So I mean, I'm getting fairly experienced, I guess, at this point when it comes to Essence of War games. I think I've played three, four of them now, and yeah, and I did play a bunch of the old quick starter, so yeah, getting up there with that with experience of this one. Again, so again, I measured out quite a bit of stuff, and I was really trying to think. I was trying to eat my dinner at the same time and have a glass of wine, but I really, despite all that, I was really thinking hard about how I want to position everything. So we'll get onto it. So that is how I lined up, just as I've described. Handgunners in the wood, knights ready to go on the flank. Imperial Guard threatening anything that comes onto that hill, because again, I know I've got the first turn when I put them down. Um, Wizard out here, Wizard again. He wants to potentially run forward as well. So I kind of these two, I shuffled them back and forth, and particularly reminded me of the 1 inch rule because I was trying to put them really close together. This is the only thing I don't like about this was I kind of wanted the Wizard and the Imperial Guard both on exactly the same spot, but I didn't want him to join into that unit because I wanted him to be able to run around freely and cast his spells wherever I wanted him, right? Maybe get in the way and cause some shenanigans as well. Um, Good old Maximilian there. He's well known for his shenanigans in combat and things like that, as we've seen in some of the other battles. But yes, so I ended up doing this and kind of going, well, I'll have to just hope. Maybe the wizard should end up being over here, but he can either the unit can move forward and he can go behind them, or he can go forward. The unit can come behind him if I really need to. So we'll see how that goes. So Chack deployed like that, and I will show it on the overhead view in a moment. It's a bit clearer. But one thing, he has put his druid in the unit of archers. Now, that can sometimes be a disadvantage, as we've pointed out in the past in Essence of War, because you do lose a guy from the unit. And if they've got shooting attacks, then and that wizard cast character or any other character doesn't have shooting attacks, then you will lose out one of those missile shots. But here, it's fine because he's got a longbow and he's just as good at shooting as the rest of the unit. So, and I think it is wise to do that because he's worried about my scorching salvo going off, because that gates everything. If he's on his own, he'll get hit in addition to all the units. Whereas if he's in the unit itself gets hit, whereas he won't get hit in extra. So if that makes sense. So yeah, to protect himself from the scorching salvo, or even potentially the handgunners, although given he knows my setup, he's not really doing that. So this is how it ended up. So we're kind of very slanted. I'm all slanted up here. He's Chack's all slanted down here. I was very surprised by this deployment, I have to say. Um, so what? I mean, this I was thinking, right? This is pretty good for me when this started off, because right, the one unit I want to hit with all my range stuff is these wild huntsmen. They are, even though they've got, well, I'd say maybe the druids. Sorry, the dryads. Dryads and druids sound similar, but they're very different. One's a spellcaster, one's this unit of combat sort of mini treemen, I guess. These dryads. Um, Both of those units I really want to shoot up, but they're both fairly vulnerable in different ways. But I'd say this one's the most important because even if I can't like kill them all, and I probably can't panic them because they do have high discipline. But again, I want to take my chances. I'm hoping to get some damage on these, force a panic test or two, and even if I can't get rid of them, if I can kill a few of them, then I'm golden because once they get down to like only 2 or 3 models, my electoral cavalry or definitely my imperial guard, even maybe even my handgunners. I mean, I could probably take them if I can charge them, but once I've knocked a few of them out, if I can whittle them down a little bit, then I can probably receive a charge from them and still not be too scared. But you know, every single model really critical in that unit. So if I can even kill one, it's great. But the way he's positioned them, I'm like, hang on a minute. I've got my gunners here. I've got my wizard here. He's kind of like positioned opposite exactly what I wanted him to be going for, which is really odd. I really thought this would push my setup would force his cavalry down here, and I thought we'd end up with a kind of I guess a bit of a standoff maybe. But I thought a standoff slightly benefits me because I'm not, again with this, especially with this deployment, I wasn't too scared of the shooting unit being down here because again there's not much they can really get to. They've got some good clean shots obviously against my Imperial Guard, but as we said though, they're probably the best unit to take it. Like they're not too scary. The only unit that I'm really scared of him shooting at is this one. But again, that's why I put him in the wood, and that's maybe why Chack has not bothered with that one. I mean, they are also a decent combat unit. Every unit can become a combat unit when it needs to be, essentially, in Essence of War. And particularly if you can get in the flank, you can do some real damage. So yeah, I was really surprised. I guess these guys are trying to move up in the cover, but again, doesn't the hill? I feel like the hill here is just like an outright advantage to me because he's got the movement speed advantage on me in general. Um, and my wizard doesn't need line of sight for anything, so my wizard wants to get around here. Um, and yeah, and also like as I say, if I can set up because I've got the first turn, if I can set up in a good position to charge anything that comes onto the hill, it couldn't put kind of negates the extra speed. If we're like in open ground, the one who's got the extra movement has more advantage than when there's a bit of terrain blocking line of sight, because then by the time you can see each other, like it's already a shorter range basically, and the speed advantage becomes less of a factor. So yeah, I thought this was, I don't know. I feel like Chack has played like totally into my hands here, basically with the way he's deployed. Um, but we'll see how I'll explain how it goes on. So my first turn, I do move right. I spent a bit of time shuffling about. This is the 18-inch range for my scorching salvo. And I was like, can I get 3 units? Like, if I shuffle down a bit, I couldn't, but I could just clip 2 of them, and a clip's as good as you need. And the other thing I was trying to do, so I was really careful. These he did put all these right as well. The other thing he did right was he's put all of his units on the deployment zone, so they're already far enough forward that I can do things like this. If he'd put everything a few inches back, it would have been much safer. So again, I really would consider this, and actually, this goes back to the old Ninth Age quick starter battle. My very first game, I played Orcs and Goblins against Empire of Sunstyle. Now, those rules and lists were slightly different to Essence of War, but the same sort of principle applied. I went, hang on a minute, the Empire list has got way good shooting than me, and I was going second. Oh no, I was deploying first in that case actually, so I didn't know. But I thought I don't want to push forward. I want to be a little bit back to make sure that I don't run into their firepower earlier than I need to. That was my thinking there. But here, Chack again, because he's pushed them all up right against his deployment zone, just as I have, and I would definitely want to because I want to get some shots off on the first turn was my goal, and this gives me exactly that opportunity. But the one thing it is good about these wild huntsmen being so far forward, right? Their potential charge range is absolutely huge. It's out to about here, so I had to be really careful. I mean, I think I was measuring it out, so they've got 9 plus 12 potential charge ranges. But I mean, if he gets that Truth of Time spell off on them as well, that they're even gonna be closer to getting those long charges off. So I was really careful, and I wanted so I had to find the perfect position for this wizard where we could get as much as possible within this circle, but also stay out of line of sight and hide behind the hill. There was one mistake here that I don't know if you spotted it with his positioning. I thought this was great. I thought I've done the perfect positioning here. That's his full 8-inch move, by the way. So that was 7.4 is from like the front of his base to the middle of his base. So I think he was like bang on 8 inches to get to this spot. So he couldn't get close to the hill. That would have been even better if he could have got a bit further, of course. But his old little wizardly legs cannot carry him any farther than that in one turn. Um, so yeah, but I was still really happy with that positioning. I then moved up with all my units like that. So again, this swap. So again, I wanted, as I said at the start, I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go with this. In the end, I thought, well, there's nothing coming onto this hill, um, realistically. So I'm happy for him to kind of block the Imperial Guard because even if these guys came down to here, like they weren't going to be charging me this turn anyway. And so yeah, I would again. It was like I kind of wanted them both to be here, but this was okay. I thought, okay, I'll keep them back a little bit, and if necessary, I'll run in with my wizard and block their charge to the Imperial Guard if I'm worried about that. And then I've got 2 rounds of shooting against these wild huntsmen. So yeah, there was a lot of thinking here for the next turn. What could Chack do against this like sort of defensive position? Again, I really wanted to move up. You see where they started. I really wanted to swing them all around the way around here. But when I looked at this angle, these guys are so threatening. Their charge, I couldn't get out of line of sight, basically, even if I moved the full 14 inches and straightforward, right? I still couldn't actually get to hide behind this building versus these wild huntsmen. So, and again, I think there was some maybe 12. No, I think these are out. No, all of these are completely out of charge range now. So he can't be seen, and these guys are outside even the maximum possible charge of these guys. So again, that was all measured out, trying to make sure I didn't give Chack any cheeky turn one charges because I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to get 2 rounds of shooting here. This is golden. This is what I want to do. So we move into the magic phase, of course. Next, I think it was a 4-2, which was ideal for me because the only spell I care about right now is that Scorching Salvo. So it's just really, I just don't want him to have a lot of Dispel dice to stop me. I think it was an unstoppable one. Yeah, it looks like it was 12. Yeah, yeah. So it's unstoppable Scorching Salvo. D3 plus 1 hits on these guys and D3 plus 1. I think I did no damage to the Dryads, so not great on the Dryads, but got 2 of the Wild Huntsmen down. So this was fantastic. I was already like really, really happy with this first turn, basically. The position I thought was really strong for me, and I'd already got a decent roll off on this spell. So yeah, really fortunate for me. Chack did pass his panic test though. So well, discipline 9, it wasn't good odds. But again, I'm pretty happy with this already. Then we move into the shooting phase. Long shooting. They have moved, long range, so hitting on 6s. But that's still a threat. You should get 1 or 2. You should probably kill another 1 or 2 of these guys actually on average. I think well, 1 probably is probably about the average, right? Despite all their defense and things, and despite that long range, again, these wild huntsmen, right, are real glass cannon. So yeah, they don't like it, don't like being shot at. Um, so and then that happened. Yes, guys. This is overall this turn. I was flabbergasted. This was probably the luckiest I've ever been in any dice game I've ever played. I mean, the odds were, as I say, it was like I think this was all playing out in my favour anyway. And then I rolled a regular roll like that, so I actually got four sixes out of the tens. So I rolled 10 dice to hit, got four sixes. I think three or four wounds, maybe three wounds through, and he didn't make a single 6+ armor save. Wiped the entire unit out. Ouch. Nothing was in panic range, but like even one being left would have been very important though, because Chack could have then like fled and then kept him back as a potential charge into a flank later in the game. One unit being left can be quite maneuverable, by the way, as well. So yeah, it was really huge that I got that complete wipe out rather than leaving one guy behind. Even. But yeah, really, I felt really sorry for Chack here because like this this as well. I mean, maybe it was one. Like maybe it's like Furion says. Maybe the deployment and first turn are absolutely critical here, and I felt like they were when this happened. And I already felt like, wow, I've got absolute control of this game now because I'm not. I'm already 3 units to 2 up, so I've already got a huge advantage on the objective, and I'm really happy with my positioning. The only kind of downside is that now the handgunners and knights probably can't do very much for a little while, because but I'm already within one move of the objective as well. But again, that was something I considered with my handgunners. If they'd been having to sit back here in the wood, they wouldn't immediately be able to move out, march out, and get into the objective center. Whereas from this position, they're one move in and they're in, right? So they're already a threat to score at the end of the game as well. So yeah, unfortunately, all going in my favour here. I feel almost a little bit bad about making this bat rep, but one of the reasons I wanted to do it was to talk about how that deployment really affects the game. And the other reason was some people have been saying that they thought that the power of shooting in Essence of War maybe wasn't great enough. But here's these the handgunners here to show you what shooting can do. Right, honestly, it can do a lot. We've already seen these handgunners wipe out a unit of Fallen in the last game I reported on, and now they've wiped out a unit of Wild Huntsmen. So yeah, shooting. I really love how the balance of shooting we've got right now in Essence of War patrols. Um, really cool stuff. So anyway, on to Chank's turn. He's obviously pretty unhappy about the proceedings right now, but I have to say he was a very sporting opponent throughout the game, and he was totally taking this on the chin and having still been very pleasant. And I'm not sure I might have been in a bit of a grump if this happened to me. Um, but as I said, we actually talked about why did he make such an aggressive move? Because there's a lot of things he could have done to avoid this situation, right? He could have held back, like put his Wild Huntsman back there, or he could have like positioned them, deployed them down here, which is kind of what I thought he would do. Um, he did say he had considered it, and he deliberately kind of went with this high risk, high reward style potentially because he thought that by placing them out here, it was as I did say, it caused a big threat range on the right from turn one and made me not want to advance too much. And I can see his line of thinking there. There's definitely some logic to that. But honestly, with that unit, that there's such a glass cannon, and they are the most powerful and most important unit in the entire patrol. And I don't think you can afford to take that kind of risk with them. Certainly, if I've not played with Sylvan Elves, I'm not a Sylvan Elf player. They probably don't suit me. That kind of high risk, high reward glass cannon type of army is like, that sounds the opposite of the kind of thing I would like to play, right? But I'll definitely give them a go one day. I'm sure of that. Um, Certainly at Essence of War level anyway, if not at full Fantasy Battles level, because that'll take me rather a lot of collecting of models and things. But I feel like if it was me, I'd be maybe too cautious with my Wild Huntsman and not want to take that kind of risk. But yeah, if you take that kind of risk and it goes against you in turn one, this is unfortunately how it goes. So anyway, Chack does move up with both his units, so a big move with the Dryads swinging forward, keeping them out of line of sight though. And as I did say, there was a bit of a mistake with my positioning of the wizard that I'd not considered. I suddenly remembered about the move and shoot, and they're still good at shooting, even if they move forward at even moving and even at long range. These guys, because they don't have a penalty to hit, pretty threatening. And I was like, well, okay, don't worry about the Imperial Guard, but what I've left is a line of sight. So I avoided the line of sight of the potential charge of the Wild Huntsman, but now Pew pew. Mr. Mage here is going to get peppered with some arrow fire. We go to the magic phase first, of course. I think he puts, yeah, he puts on his buff spell. I think it was Truth of Time. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Aegis Save. Anyway, he's got a buff off on his archers, but again, it wasn't particularly relevant. I think that's one of the things with the Sylvan Elf magic phase in Essence of War patrols is that it's not super potent because they only have these buff spells, and both of those buff spells are a bit conditional on the situation as to whether they're even helpful or not. So not really a potent magic phase, and certainly not much Chack could do to scare me at this stage of the battle with his magic. Oh, it was Healing Waters. There we go. Very nice. Thanks for the screenshots here from Potato, of course. He does get some shooting off, and yeah, there we go. Pew 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 pew. And he only takes one wound though, one hit point rather. That could have been, yeah, that that was somewhat risky. If you look at the odds of that, he probably should have took. I think it was one and something average wounds, so it was probably close to average to only taking one hit from that. But yeah, a real risk there. He could have been shot off the board, so which wouldn't not have been great for me, especially as if he dies, he could have caused a panic test on these Imperial Guard, things like that. But whew, Maximilian von Feuerbach, I think his name is, gets away with it this time. So there we go. Yeah, small mistake from me. Um, and yeah, not sure what I'm rolling there, but oh yeah, sorry, I'm maneuvering. So this was onto my next turn, maneuvering the stuff. Again, I'm setting up. So what I did, I swing forward with all these units. There's a small mistake here actually. Is it already in? Yeah. So, okay. I'm going to focus again. This is something I've watched in other Tactica videos and things. Um, People say there's lots and lots and lots of small mistakes you make when you're playing a game like Ninth Age, and a really good player, you're trying to eliminate those mistakes, even if they don't actually matter in that game. And I'm in such a strong position here. I'm like, oh well, almost it's like I can do anything, but I'm like, okay, let's try and focus on playing clean as well and maximize this opportunity. And I wasn't too sure what to do. Like I've never really been in such a great position like this. So I was like, okay, how do I safely like maximize my chances, right? So I pushed forward with these guys to make sure they'd have an easy charge on anything that came up onto the hill, because they've like not quite an auto charge onto all points of that hill, but very, very, very like maybe it's an auto, yeah, probably an auto charge onto anything on that hill actually, by placing the Imperial Guard right up against it. I've also got half of their frontage behind the hill if these Sylvan Bowmen decide to stand back and shoot me. So that was good. I've kept my wizard out of harm's way, but within range of his spells, and that's good as well. However, there was something I hadn't really considered, and that was the potential. Oh, actually, sorry, I did a lot of measurements as well with these handgunners. I wanted to make sure if something came onto the hill, I could shoot like full short range shooting onto anything. So the thing is, right, I've kind of doubled up. So I've got potential charge, anything that comes onto the hill. I've got potential short range shooting, anything that comes onto the hill. But of course, you can't do both, right? So if he does move up a unit onto the hill next turn, I've then got to choose. If I charge it, great, but then I've got nothing to do with my handgunners. So it might have been better to keep the handgunners back, right? It's it was hard to say because it all came down to like the dice rolls of how I rolled my shooting. Um, but yeah, I really considered this, and I decided to kind of like, okay, I've got both. I'm like deterrent. I'm like, do you want to get shot? Do you want to get charged? Don't come on this hill, guys. But of course, I mean, Chack in this situation again. One of the things to do is playing from behind. You've got to take some risks, right? If you're already losing, then taking some chancy moves is probably the right way to play. Because if you just play it safe, you're not going to win anyway. So I should have known that he'd come up on the hill anyway. And yeah, it was like which is better, hitting the scorching salvo and some handgunners, or charging in with both units? Like either way, it was really tough. I probably should have sat there and crunched the numbers a little bit more, whereas I just kind of went, I'll just shove everything into short range. So their 12-inch range covered the entire hill, even from the back rank from where I positioned them. And these would probably have a flank charge into anything into the front of these guys. So again, they're all protecting each other. The wizards back a bit, again, not messing up a charge arc. That was another thing I was considering. What was the charge arc going to be? I don't want to chaff myself as you can do. You can get your own wizard could have got in the way of my own units here, so I was pretty happy with the positioning there. But he was blocking a potential charge onto these handgunners. The one thing I didn't super consider was the flee path though, right? So if a unit comes in directly into my Imperial Guard, I think they're quite well positioned in that regard, right? But there is something I didn't think about, and we'll come on to this in the next few turns. So another Scorching Salvo phase, which is all I care about. There's absolutely no use whatsoever for my other spell now. So again, I got a lucky card again. I got low dispel dice on my opponent, which is what I care about, more than how many dice I get, because I'm not going to want to cast 2 spells anyway. So it's all about the ratio of dice, not the total number of dice. Get hits on everything once again. Kaboom, kaboom. Roll some very tasty rolls as well. And we do take out 3 dryads this time. So, and the healing waters on these, and two archers, my goodness. So even despite the healing waters, all these Aegis saves, and the high resilience of these dryads, again, everything was rolling in my way in this battle, guys. Like, I can't, this whole thing was just like unbelievable to me. I've never had fluky rolling. Like, saying my history of gaming is like I always roll like slightly under average. I'm never the unluckiest player around either, but I'm never lucky. And I kind of play for that. Like all my tactics and odds and things, I'm like, well, I'm probably gonna hit average or thereabouts, maybe a bit below it. So if I play for a bit below average, I'll probably be okay. And that's generally how my dice go. I never quite do as well as I should with anything, but never get super bad rolls usually either. But like, yeah, this was just like over the top, great roll, really fluky rolling for me. Really unlucky on the Aegis saves. Did keep his rank at least. There is that. Didn't pass. Sorry, did pass all his panic checks though. So passed the panic check on the dryads. These didn't have to take one because only 2 out of 10. That's not enough for a panic check. So yeah, over to Chack's phase, and what would he decide to do? And he does push up like that. He advances with these guys to get some more shots in, and he again shoves these guys forward. So again, I'm probably okay. I think my flee path is yeah. This is what I should have considered was if these guys did get beaten in combat, what was the flee path going to be? Because I didn't want, and also I did consider that I've brought everyone so close together. Is that 6 inches? No, it isn't on purpose. Because if these were to get charged and broke and fled, and what would get panic tests? Unfortunately, the wizard would. Certainly, the handgunners would. Which again, might have been maybe I should have kept the handgunners back and just pushed the the knights to where they were and the Imperial Guard to where they were. And in this situation, I could have then charged in with both units. That would have been a flank charge and a front charge. Could have been pretty certain I would take out these dryads with that. But then my handgunners would have been back here safely, away from the main battlefield, safe from panic checks. I feel like that would have been a better play in retrospect because here, although I'm trying to press my advantage, I can't press it on both the shooting front, as I say, and the maneuverability combat front. Um, and I kind of did try to do both, even though it doesn't really work like that. I think the safe play would have been just to press the melee and positional advantage, hold back my handgunners in case of some really bad rolls, and not give Chack the potential for some like hugely lucky swing back to him, if you see what I mean. Whereas here, although I'm in my mind I'm pressing my advantage to the maximum possibility, I am kind of leaving myself open to maybe some disastrous panic checks or something like that. So in we go. So what I decided to do, given this, again, I was like, which is the better? Do I charge in? Do I shoot in? As I've gone for this positioning for the shooting, I decide to maximize my shooting potential. And what I do, I move the wizard around. It seems to be. Oh no, this is Chack's magic phase. Sorry, we're going too far ahead. I've jumped ahead there. Chack's magic phase gets off some more buffs. I think he got off both of them actually here. I can't quite remember. No, he gets off Truth of Time on these guys. I think I managed to stop the Healing Waters for what it was worth. Yeah, so then we're back to his shooting phase. Does kill a couple of Imperial Guard, so not brilliant, but about average, I would say there. But again, I'm not too worried about that. Now we go on to my turn, and again, so I thought it all through, decided not to charge. Instead, Wizard ran over here to keep out from from get shot by these guys. Keep out of 6 inches as well. Now this was a bit smarter because I've now got him away from any other units. So if he does get killed by it for anything, right, he won't cause panic checks on anyone else. And likewise, if these Imperial Guard did get charged and lose against the Dryads for, say, next turn, he wouldn't get panicked at least, so I'd be able to use my magic for sure. Um, but again, given my positioning, I decided to go for the shooting. We go in with the, yeah, I get another, I mean, this is like a crazy, so I get another Scorching Salvo off, and Chack rolled that for his Dispel. I mean, this guy is having absolutely no luck with the dice this entire game. It was just crazy. So again, doesn't manage to stop it. It was pretty hard to stop anyway. I think I had a 13 or something, so I hadn't done a great roll. Now maybe it was even higher than that, but yeah, just a terrible roll. Another Scorching Salvo goes off. Another 4 hits on the Dryad. Another 2 hits on the Elves, but only damages one Dryad and one Elf. So then my shooting comes though, so I've maximised this odds and does take out another Dryad. So the funny thing here is like I got this time I rolled my usual, rolled a little bit under average, and actually got the same number of hits at short range, not moving, firing. Got 4 hits than I had with the 6s to hit. So 4s to hit, 6s to hit. Doesn't matter to me. I get 4 hits either way. So look at that. So and obviously these guys are a bit tougher at taking that firepower than the Wild Huntsmen were, because they've got the Resilience 4 and the Aegis Save 5+, whereas these guys only have Resilience 3 with the armor penetration of the handguns that only have armor saves of 6. So maybe was like getting a bit feeling a bit too flush with the power of my handguns there, because like it didn't do that much. So all of that only killed 2, and if I'd charged them, I probably definitely would have wiped them out, because I'd have had 2 guys pursuing and things like that. And then yeah, may have been pursuing off like down here. It was partly due to the he'd cleverly made it so that I couldn't, if I did get in there, cause them to flee, I couldn't get into contact with those archers. So yeah, okay. Again, ended up with that dice rolling. I didn't like it, and I was like, I should have charged. And again, so this all comes back to it would have been better to keep these handgunners back, charging in instead, and just using these as a reserve unit, not trying to get everything out of all my units right in this advantageous situation to me. But still, I mean, looking at the battlefield, he's got not much left here, and I'm virtually undamaged, and I'm all in the center, or like an inch out of the center here from these 2 units. So it's looking fantastic positioning for the Empire of Sonstal. So Chack's turn 3 though decides to, as we said, does the right move, right? He's got to take some chances there. Charges with both his units into the Imperial Guard. Now he declared it this one first, so I seriously considered fleeing, because it was like the super safe move to not lose the game basically. But it didn't really work out, because I I'd have to make that flee roll first, right? These would probably catch me and probably destroy him, and then I'd have to take like a discipline checks on definitely the handgunners, possibly the knights. Didn't like that, right? Whereas like, and he then potentially have to be able to make a redirect, um, and because he charged these guys in first, yeah, it didn't work out. I basically went, okay. I mean, they're probably going to win anyway, right? But it's like, okay, still think about, should I flee here to just not take the chance of the combat going really badly? Um, and actually, no, it was too risky to flee in this situation, because they're so close to these guys. They'll probably catch them and kill them. And even if they don't, they've got a discipline 8 to redirect into the handgunners. Like everything could have gone really pear-shaped if I. And again, I don't know if I maximised my odds here. Like, is there a better way to play this? I'm not sure. Maybe someone in the comments tell me if there's a better thing I should have done here that I'm not like seeing. These have got Truth of Time on, of course. This fairly, I mean, it was still not a bad charge anyway. It was a fairly easy charge, and with Truth of Time on, there was like almost no way. I think they needed a 4 or something. And he did need it though. As Potato said, his first 2 dice rolled were like a 3 or something crazy, but the next 2 were like 6 and a 4. So yeah, so the Truth of Time guaranteed they'd get in. And this is what I'd not considered, right? Because these handgunners, again, because they're so close, even though they're offset, because of the way he has to maximize the guys in combat when they charge in, he has to position them like this, which is kind of bad in that he doesn't get all his dryads fighting, but also kind of good in the fact that there's now, if he does win this combat, that pursuit takes him straight into those handgunners, which is exactly what he wants to do. He wants to get in combat with those handgunners, not let them shoot again. So yeah, and I've only got one turn left, so it's all yeah. I don't know. Maybe I took this did this slightly badly. In any case, though, we'll go through the combat. I think he gets a magic phase. I can't remember. He gets off another truth of time. I think I managed to stop the Aegis save one. But yeah, this combat does not go well, unfortunately, for Chack. Once again, my hot rolling continues. I only lose, I think, it's that one more Imperial Guard from all of that. I mean, they are really tough guys, right? But that was crazy. I mean, he only got 2 Dryad attacks, only a handful of Arch. I mean, I guess it wasn't crazy odds that that would happen, but yeah, really. I mean, Chack needed some big luck here to do anything and didn't do it. And then I got some again. My fortunate rolls continued. I killed a Dryad. I killed 2 or 3 archers. I ended up winning this combat by I think it was 4 points. I think it was 6-2 because I had the ranks advantage as well. Even though he'd got the charges, he only killed one guy, so he had 2 points. 1 point for charge, 2 points for the damage, and I killed 4 guys and had 2 ranks still. So yeah, he really needed to kill another couple of Imperial Guards to have any chance of winning that combat, and didn't get it. And then they both fled. I mean, they had low discipline, so that you'd see was likely. The one thing that did go in his favour, though, I rolled a really low pursuit roll, which was good in a way. It kept them within the range of the circle, which is why I did it actually, because I looked at the odds. The odds of them getting out of range of the objective was like really low. Probably wouldn't matter. I probably won the game anyway, but again, I was like still trying to think, okay, play solid here. Like, what's the best play? So they end up that these guys both flee, and of course, this truth of time meant they fled off like crazy. So they were always going to go a really long way. But yeah, we're going into the Chack's last turn here. And he. Oh, no, sorry, it's my turn. It's my turn next. That's right. So this is the problem actually. If you break in your opponent's turn, your opponent gets to then do more. So this is really bad. So if you charge in and lose a combat, it's much worse than if they charge you and you lose a combat due to the way the turn sequence works. So yeah, there's my Imperial Guard chasing down these guys with his rest of his army in tow. We had a very strange rules interaction here. I won't go into it all now because it's going to be a bit lengthy, but if you want to read about it, it's on the Ninth Age forum. I charged these Dryads and they fled further. I rolled high enough to catch them on the actual straight line distance, but because this other fleeing unit was getting in the way, I had to wheel to try and contact them. And where they ended up here, I can't get an angle that these. So basically, this other fleeing unit ends up blocking my path to these guys that have fled to here. I could see everything because on top of the hill, by the way, as well. So yeah, if you want to get into that rules interaction, we believe this was all correct, right? Because that ends up being a failed charge. So they only move at 4 inches. I think I rolled a 4 and a 2. So they'd move 4 inches, kept them within the zone. That was the good news for me. Although I would have had another turn if I'd caught a fleeing unit, reformed, and then moved back in my last turn. Oh no, this is my last turn. Sorry. So, but I've got two to nothing because he can't. Even if he rallies them both, right? They're not going to be able to get back in. So I know I've won the game, but like I was trying to push these units further away and catch them and things. Anyway, we believe we did this all correctly. This is the same rules in Fantasy Battles, the full version of Ninth Age, as it is in Essence of War for this particular situation. So if you're a bit of a rules guru for the Ninth Age, please go onto the forum and tell us that we're doing it all right and we've got the rules correct in Essence of War as well. And this is all how the rules are written. So we were pretty we're pretty certain. We're flicking through the rule books, like flicking through the full Fantasy Battles rulebook as well to make sure this was all correct. But we believe it was. It's just a bit of a strange interaction. I then get off another scorching salvo, get another bunch of these guys die, and then I think Chack maybe manages to rally them. But I think they both rallied, but it was all. Oh no, one of them continued to flee. I'm correct. Can't remember. Anyway, it didn't matter. It was a resounding victory with the luckiest rolls I've ever seen. So, sorry, Chack, mate. Well played anyway, and a really nice guy, obviously, as I say, to play. We were all having a nice chat after the battle as well. Really cool to see someone else who believe is on the Ninth Age staff. So, Ninth Age getting some really good people able to help out with the with everything there. So, good games anyway, and I shall stop this recording here and see you all next time. Bye.